Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me. I think I've got a small technical hitch happening with Restream, which is what I'm using to... Hello, everybody. Oh, I forgot to mute myself. I hope you can hear me. I think... Oh, dear me. Naughty Lou. I keep forgetting to do that. Okay, right. Start again. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me today. We have a little bit of an interesting situation going on, in that Restream's not picking up certain things, and apparently my internet connection is flaky. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on two different places for chat. So let me know if you can't hear me, if you can't see me, something goes wrong. I can always restart things and have another go. So I have to look in two different places for chat. So please forgive me if I miss your question or comment. But hopefully this is the test run. Next time we do this is going to be flawless. Okay, so thank you very much for joining me, everybody. We're going to do something a little bit fun today. Well, everything we do, every time we meet up, it's fun. But we're going to do a different type of fun. So what we're going to do is have a look at LOAD CSV. So some of you may have been aware I sent a tweet out before Christmas, so in December, and I was really keen to crowdsource your views on, if you were starting with LOAD CSV for the first time, or maybe you are at the first time, maybe you are already at the start of this journey. What would you want to know about? What are your questions? What are your sticking points? So that was the goal. So I thought we're going to do something with a bit of fun. Is we're going to do a quiz. First ever quiz on Twitch. I'm so excited. So we're going to do a quiz. So we're going to get you involved. Please do join in. You don't need to download the Kahoot. We're using Kahoot. You don't need to download the app. You can literally go to kahoot.it and it will bring it up. So let's have a go with this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use the questions in the quiz as the driver to our session. All good? Right, let's do this. Okay, so what you need to do is you need to go to kahoot.it. So I'll put the thing in the chat. Oh, I just pressed a funny button. I don't know what I just did there. That was exciting. So this is where you need to go. I'm putting in the link. So I'm going to give you a few moments. So I'm going to give it about 30 seconds or so. So go to that website. And you will be greeted with, actually, I can do this now. You can see what it's going to look like. Hello, Omar. Thank you. Hello. Yes. So join in. You'll be asked to put in a PIN number. So put in that PIN number here at the top. And you'll be asked to put in a nickname. So put in a nickname. So you're going to get a few joining. So I don't want to leave a huge amount of time. So it may well be 2 people doing this. And we're going to have a bit of fun. You know you want to. It'll be good fun. So it will look like this. So all you need to do is put in this PIN number here into there. So let's, come on, please. Come on, Kevin, you join in. Alex, I can see you as well. Oh, Pratik's going to join as well. Swift Giraffe, excellent. Love it. Come on, get more. Speedy Go. I love the thing going on here. This is brilliant. Gonna a bit more fun. We'll give it a couple more. Anybody else wants to join in? We'll have a go another one of these. I had a bit of fun with the pictures as well. You don't strictly need the pictures. Magic Possum. I love it. Wonderful, wonderful. Kevin Swift Giraffe. Brilliant. Okay. Joyful Panda. Oh, it randomizes your names. Right. Okay, let's do this. Are we ready? Excellent. So I've never used this before. As I've been on the receiving end of doing the quiz. I've never actually had a go at running the quiz. So hopefully this is all going to work. But are we all ready? We're good to go. Let's do the quiz. And let's go. We're not at work. We're having fun. I just borrowed something. So got the witty title. So question 1, true or false? Load CSV is a transactional process. So you press either true or false. So what we mean by transactional is the database is going to make records of changes and wind it back. Cool. There we go. Everybody got it right. Well done. Right, let's move on to the next one. Oh, we get scoreboard as well. Joyful Panda was the quickest clicker. Right, let's move on to the next question. Another true or false. You don't need to bother with a data model when importing data. True or false? Oh, I think we're going to have an interesting situation here. Oh, well done, everybody. Oh, I'm so proud of you all. Correct. Yes, you do need to think about your data model. We don't create a data model per se in the relational database sense, but you still need to be thinking about what that data model is when you're importing your data. All right, let's go on to the next one. Oh, as I've looked at the scoreboard, Joyful Panda charging out in front. But you all got the questions right, which is the important bit. A good way to deal with duplicate rows in a CSV is... Oh, bit of a tougher question here. So we're going to talk about this one. So this isn't a strict yes or no answer. I struggled to read the yellow. Okay, that's good feedback for me to look at in the future. We're going to cover this one, so don't panic. We are going to talk about this in the session. And let's move on to the next question. Okay, another true or false. You don't need to handle null values on imports when using load CSV. Okay, that's all right. We're going to talk about handling nulls as well. So about half and half. So we're going to talk about null values. Yeah, I just realised, Kevin, I'm sorry this is a bit slow. I've just realised we have a bit of a lag from Restream and what appears on Twitch and on YouTube Live. So what I'm going to do next time is I can make the round times bigger. So I'm going to make it 30 seconds next time. So this is our practice run. This is the let's do a quiz. And next time we're going to add extra time and make it amazing. But at the moment you can admire the cute cat pictures as well. I hope you're liking the cat pictures, by the way. But we're going to talk about null values today as well. So let's do the next question. Oh, bit of Swift Giraffe charging up the board there. Joyful Panda still sitting on the podium spot. Okay, so next question. If you have a very large data set for import, you would probably... All right, well done. Well done. We're going to talk about this one as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about the bulk importer and what's the difference between that and load CSV. So we're going to have a chat around that today as well. And we've got one more question left, all to play for. Yeah, thanks for that, Kevin. Yeah, we're going to have a look at what we can do about the yellow because it's not a bit difficult to read, isn't it? So you ready for the last one? Last question? If load CSV is really slow on a modest data set and a simple merge, you should probably check. Did you see what I did here? So I don't know how this one works with multi-select, but basically you're not getting this one wrong. This is in ode to the fact that I seem to keep forgetting about my indexes when I input stuff. Oh, we've got the I'm really sorry, everybody. I just realised I've got the overlay here as well. I'm not making it easy for you to see the options. I'm really sorry. Really, really sorry about that. Okay, this is learning. I'm taking notes. We're going to make this quiz even better. So let's have a quick look at the final scores before we continue our session. Welcome, Necro. We're doing a quiz. We thought we'd have a bit of fun. So we're going to do a session on LOAD CSV, but we thought we'd do a quick quiz on what we're going to cover today. So just having a bit of fun. We're just having a bit of fun. So well done, Joyful Panda. Well done, Podium. No, well done, all of you, for taking part. That was great fun. You all got most of the questions right, pretty much, and some of those were a bit tricky. They're a bit of a naughty question, but we're going to go through this stuff. So quickly, let me know in the chat as we continue with the session. How did you find that? Was that fun? Would you want to do another one of these quizzes? Hello, Javier. Welcome, welcome. So, yeah, we'll do another quiz next time. So if you like the quiz, we'll do these a bit more regularly. I think these are a nice bit of interaction. So we've got the chat and we can also do the interaction with the quiz questions as well. So we talked about this. So what we're going to do, we've started with our quiz for the plan. And now we're going to look at some LOAD CSV stuff. So you will be surprised or not to find out that a lot of this is going to be driven by what we looked at in the quiz. So I should have written these down before I started. So bear with me one moment. So I've brought up a sandbox. I thought we can have a look at stuff like that. So if we need to have a look at some code, we can. So let me just bring up our questions and I will go through each one. So one moment. Oh dear, there's lots of things clicking at me. Okay, so we started off with the first question, which was, actually, let me start the quiz up again. Let's do that. I think that's fine. So let's do play. And, one moment. So can I just have no people? Oh, I know what I can do. Hang on, I can do a test. Let me do it. Can I do a test run? And preview. Excellent. Right. Look at this. This amazing technology. The last person can send a new question. Oh, well, we can crowdsource some questions, Kevin. So I like that. I think we could do that. It'd be fun. So we didn't have this many answers. This is just the preview. Don't panic. So the first one we had is LOAD CSV is a transactional process. So what this is, what we basically mean is you think about the database and we have transactions that go on the database. And what are these transactions? Effectively, it is a way of being able to bundle together something that we're doing to the database. So we're doing some changes. So maybe we are changing something in the database, we're adding some new data, maybe we're deleting something, maybe we're updating something. So we're doing these things, these transactions. And what happens is the database keeps track of the fact, that we've made these changes, which allows us to roll back. So if we decide we've accidentally done something or whatever, it makes sure that we have this opportunity to do that. But also with the transaction, it guarantees that something's going to happen. So you think about if you're doing a big write to the database. So let's pick LOAD CSV. That's a big write to the database potentially. So we're doing a big write to the database. And let's say something happens, I don't know, we have a power cut or something major happens, which interrupts this process. But it being a transactional process, what it basically says is if it can't sort of tell you that it's made that commitment, it's committed, it's made that change to the database, then it will wind everything back. So that's what it is. That's what a transactional process is. And that is very important in certain applications. So if you think about situations where you must guarantee that something has either written to the database or it hasn't, that's important. So for example, if you think about your bank and you're withdrawing money or you're depositing money. We're perhaps less worried about the withdrawing and the bank forgets about it. But if we're depositing money, we want to have a guarantee that the bank comes back and tells us, yes, we've received your money and here's your balance increasing. We don't want that to be eventually consistent. We want that as a transaction wrapped up immediately. That's either, committed, yes, that money's been received and we see an increase in our bank balance, or no, we keep that money, in our pocket. So that's that. And yes, so load CSV is a transactional process. So if something goes wrong, and I'm not including the periodic commit, so let's leave that for another episode. But if you were using load CSV without the periodic commit, etc., basically, if it fell over, then it wouldn't make changes to the database. And if it succeeds, it's going to tell you it has succeeded. Enough from that. All right, let's move on to the next one. So you don't need to bother with the data model when importing the data. And all of you got it correct. Love it. All of you got this correct. So whilst, yes, Neo4j does not require you ahead of time to define your schema, you do not have to tell Neo4j, these are my primary keys, etc., etc. When you are thinking about loading your data into the database, you should have some idea of what your data model is going to look like. You should have an understanding of what the representation of your data is going to be. And yeah, you do this. And it doesn't matter. You can use a fancy elaborate tool to go off and define what this looks like. You could just draw it on a piece of paper. It doesn't matter. The important bit is that you have an idea of the data you're importing and how it's connected to each other. So I'm just going to quickly check something on YouTube because it looks like the chat messages here keep rolling back and I want to make sure I'm not losing anything. No, we're all good. We're all good here. Wonderful. Okay, so yes, and you all of it got right. I thought this might be a bit of a naughty question, but you all got it right. And yes, so you do need to bother with the data model. Doesn't matter where you've produced it, but you do need to think about how that data, the data you're bringing in, how it's related, what's going to be a property, what's going to be a node label, what's going to be a relationship type, etc. Oh, this was a bit of, I feel a bit naughty about this question. I do apologise. So a good way to deal with duplicate rows in a CSV. So this is a bit of a leading question. And ideally, you want to deduplicate the rows first. So yes, we have other options. So you can deduplicate data in your CSV. So I'm talking about where you've got repeating rows in, and it could be any kind of duplication. So if you're working with a relatively small data set, then you could probably, you could use a merge and that's fine. And what merge does is it goes away and it checks to see, does this pattern already exist? If it already exists, I'll treat it like a match. If it doesn't exist, I'm going to create it. So that's one way how we can deal with duplicates. And it's a good way if we have got many rows where, let's take the wine data, for example. So if you think about our wine data set, we have a wine title. So that's the unique element in our CSV. But that wine comes from a certain country, and we're going to have the country repeating over and over. So it makes sense that we use something like merge for the country because we don't want to, that's duplicate there. But the actual row itself is unique or should be unique because it refers to every single line is a different bottle of wine. But if you're working with a large data set and you've got lots of duplicate rows, in this example where the entire row in your CSV is the same and it's a large CSV and you've got loads of things, yes, there are things we can do within Neo4j to deduplicate that. Absolutely, we have got processes for that. But it probably makes sense at some point you'll draw a line and it will probably make more sense to do the deduplicating before you bring that data in. So maybe you are working with, I typically will use Excel, for example, to dedupe it because it's a very quick way for me to go off and do that. There'll be other tools. You'll be able to use various processing tools, I'm sure, at your disposal to do that. But usually it probably makes more sense to remove the duplicate lines out of the CSV first and then import it. If it's relatively small, yeah, you probably do it in Neo4j. If you're looking at quite a large file, you're wasting a lot of time in your import trying to deal with the duplicates when you've got a multitude of other tools that are going to do it a lot faster. So nobody selected panic. That's good. I like how you're all thinking about solving the problem and not panicking. That is a fantastic response. Let's have a look at the next one. You don't need to handle null values on import. So this was a bit of a naughty question. And what we're talking about here with regards to handling duplicates, handling nulls, is some of you may have encountered this challenge where you have a file, you've got CSV, you found some data, great, and you run it and you do your load CSV, you've got your statement, you've done your data model, you know how things are going to lie, and then it comes and throws an error message at you, and it says, you know, blah, 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 null, blah, blah. And you're just sitting again, but where's this null? Where's this null? What's this null? So if you're pulling a certain record, and let's see if we, let me see if I can pull up. Let's go to Kaggle. That's a usually good place we can go and find some, we can find a data set with nulls in it. So a null could be something like this. So let me bring up browser, why not? Whilst that's going up. So if we try and pick a random, hey, why not? Let's pick the trending one. It's quite small as well. Maybe we can have a go of everything. So if we have a look at some sample data. Do you have some sample data to quickly look at? Sorry, let's do it in browser. So let me give you an example. So if we think we had a CSV, and let's say we had some fields, and let's say ID, title, optional, and then we had something like ID of 1, title will be some title, and this is going to be 3, something else. And then let's have another row here, which is going to be, and because we said this is the next file is optional, we just leave it blank. So here is our null. Here is our null here. And what will happen is if this was our CSV, so you could pretend I've just typed it in here. So if this was our CSV, this would puke if we were creating a node and we had a property up there of optional. We'll try to read it. It's an empty value. So if you remember in Neo4j, we don't have null values in properties. So if we don't have a value for a property for over a nodal relationship, we don't have that property at all. It just does not exist. So you do have to handle nulls. And let's have a look how we get on. So we're going to go through the questions and then we can look at some examples afterwards in code. So yes, you do need, so you need to handle those nulls. Otherwise we get a horrible error message. So we'll have a look at that in a bit. Let's get through the rest of this quiz and then we'll have a look. No, not that one. If you have a very large data set for import, you would probably, so this was a bit of a cheeky trick question. If you have a very large data set which you have gone through and deduplicated and cleaned up and make sure you don't have any nulls in it, etc., then you would use the bulk importer. So let me talk to you a little bit about a couple of ways how you can import data in Neo4j. So you've got two ways of doing it, two main ways. You've got loads of ways. We've got the drivers things. I'm not going to touch that. So if you've got something that's CSV-esque, as an example, you're either going to use the load CSV to bring your data in. And if you remember from the first question, that is a transactional process. So we do that. The database is up and running. We run that command. The database guarantees us that when it tells us it's written that data to the database, it has in fact written that data to the database. And if it hasn't written it, then it hasn't written it. So it's an all or nothing. Either the data goes in or the data does not go in. Now you have, so the problem with that, so it's great we have that, we have the database up and running, it's great, it's wonderful, but it's slow, unsurprisingly. The reason it's going to not be a fast process is because we're getting all of these guarantees. The database is guaranteeing consistency and things like that. So it's not the fastest way to get data in. So if we had our beautifully cleaned, massive data set, which is deduplicated, we are not going to be using null properties, and so forth, then the fastest, and when I say fastest, I mean you can use a bulk importer and it will load gigabytes in no time at all. It just sucks up data like nobody's business. Then you'd use the bulk importer. That's what you'd use for very, very large flat files. Now, what the bulk importer does is this is a offline process. So it doesn't give you any transactional guarantees, which is why it's really important that your data is clean before you import it. But what you do with the bulk importer is you will shut down your database and then you will do the load. And what that does is it basically says, well, you're guaranteeing to me that the data is in order and is in good stead. And then it will go off, reshape the data, and very rapidly pull that into the database. And then what happens is you restart the database. You start the database up again, and it will go away. And if you've got indexes, it'll go away and start building the indexes and things in that data. But what would take, potentially take hours with load CSV will take seconds with the bulk importer. So that's what you're going to do if you've got a very large data set. And load CSV, and this is where we start to think about the differences between load CSV and the bulk importer and why might we be using them. And there's lots of good reasons why you'll be using load CSV. So load CSV is really great for just working with a sample set of data. It may well fit in part of your batch process where you're not ingesting a huge amount of data, or you've got, daily data, that kind of thing. But if you're starting off at initial load and you've got gigabytes of data, or terabytes of data, then the bulk importer is the thing you're going to do. And then you're going to use other methods once you've got that data in your database to keep it topped up. Okay, and the last one before we dive in and have a look at some of these. So again, if you've got any particular focus you want on the ones that we've covered in this session, drop them in the chat and we'll give it some love. But last one, and for those of you who have seen some of my sessions on Adventures with Wine, inevitably, I will be loading some data. I'll be using load CSV as we continue to build up our data, and we're building up our model and we're doing some iteration, or we needed to change something. Inevitably, if some of you have been with me, I'll just sit there and I'll have a very simple query that, as you know, the CSV is not particularly large. We've only got 120,000 rows. It's quite small. And it will take forever. And we'll just be sitting there going, why is it taking so long? Check the indexes. Let me talk a little bit about what's going on and why is it so slow when this happens, where we've got a relatively simple merge and we've got a relatively simple, relatively small data set. So what's happening is with the index, so we talk about Neo4j being index-free adjacency and traversals and being really fast, and this is all true, but we still need a starting point when we're doing things. And if you think about what happens with like a merge, for example, so when we've got an index, the database knows, aha, right, I can go off and have a look for the index of this property for this given node. And I know where it is, and I can go off. I find it I find it in disk, bring it up into memory, and I go and do stuff. And that's like nice and fast. If we don't have an index on a property, just hold on, I'm just going to turn the lights on quickly. If we don't have an index on a property, or as has been the case with what I've been doing, I've forgotten what I've put in, what property I've put in the index on. When we use something like merge, so bearing in mind what merge does, merge goes away and tries to find out if a pattern already exists. Does this pattern already exist? If it already exists, we're going to take that pattern and we are going to just treat it like a match. If it doesn't already exist, we are then going to create it. But it needs to go away and find out if it exists first. So it's going to go away, it's going to have a look at the index, and it's going to go, ah, yes, you exist, look it up, carry on. If there isn't an index, then it has to go away and scan. And depending on what you've provided, it's going to depend on what happens. So, you provide the label. So let's say we're talking about kittens. So let's say I've got a kitten label and I want to merge a kitten called Carrot. It looks like they've got carrot heads. So let's go with that. So I've got a kitten called Carrot, and I'm doing a merge to see whether my kitten called Carrot still exists. If I've got an index, it's going to go away and have a look. Well, we've got indexes on a sort of kitten, and great, I find my starting point. If it doesn't, it's going to go away and go, right, I'm now going to scan every single kitten node that exists and have a look at their property name and see if there's one called Carrot. If you've got a small amount of data, that's not a problem. But what you can imagine if you're loading a CSV and you're using merge for every single time, you can see that exponentially that's just going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger because you're adding more things. So it has to search for every new thing that you've added and keep going through. And that can be really slow. But as soon as you've got an index on there, what would take, maybe 40, I feel the wine one we were looking around, it took 40 minutes or something when I mishandled an index, and it took 12 milliseconds with an index to load. Same process. So yes, if it's a relatively modest data set, simple merge, check the index if it's taken a lot of time. All right, we've got some questions. So let me have a look. So Necroduck. So best practice would be like in a relational database, index the properties by which you would search. Yeah, that's a good thing. So where graph databases are really powerful, where Neo4j is really, really powerful, is once you've got your anchor node, so once you've got the node that's the first part of your sequence, we don't care about indexes because we are running across those relationships, and that's what makes it really fast. But we still need a starting point. So if we're looking for a specific, so let's come back to our kitten called Carrot. I'm probably going to get done by RSPCA for giving kittens silly names. But let's say I'm now obliged to get a cat and call it Carrot. Anyway, so let's come back to our kitten Carrot. And we want to find out about all of the other kitten friends that Carrot hangs out with. So let's say we've got a relationship of kitten is friends with, self-referencing to another kitten. That's fine. So that's the quick bit. But we still need to get to our start point of our kitten called Carrot. So this is with indexes. So yes, if you are going to be doing a loads of searches on a certain property on a node, or you're continuously going to be loading data and you're going to be checking for existing nodes of a certain property, then yes, it would be very good practice to put an index on that. If you've got properties that once in a blue moon you're going to search and you're not that worried, or you're never actually searching by that property, you're searching by something else, and then you just look at the rest of the properties, then yeah, you don't need an index on that. So another question is the search for related nodes improved by using an index? No. So the only thing we care about an index is to just find our first node. And then after that, it is significantly faster to just use the traversals. So use the relationships that we have. We wouldn't be using indexes for subsequent nodes. No, we just use it to find our first node, and then we are away with the races as we traverse at speed down our wonderful graph. Okay. So a question that Kevin has said, or more of a statement, which he said, maybe it takes hours to create all the CSV files for the bulk importer to be able to load that. That's a great point. I think the interesting thing to note here, there are some really amazing processes. So for people who are working with really large files, they have got some really cool techniques for putting things together. And I remember one client many, many moons ago when I was in pre-sales, and they had these gigantic flat files, and they were curious, like, how do we load these into the database? They're really big, they're going to take forever with load CSV. And we were telling them to use bulk importers, and we said, well, you need to do this and you need to do that to shape the file, because they had these were in triples. So this was the RDF triples, so it's like completely not in a CSV format for the importer. And what was amazing was they had so many of these gigantic files, and they basically just went, did a few things, in Scala, fired it off to their data lake, and literally within minutes or something, it just sort of they had these files that were ready for the bulk import. So yeah, completely get that, Kevin. But there are some people with skills out there who just do it. But again, it's all depending on where we are. So for me, I use Excel a lot of the time to do some deduping, depending on the file size. Sometimes the files are really big and that's difficult, and I'll just go, you know what? I don't mind waiting. I will let Cypher deal with that. And hey, I'll just go and get myself a coffee and maybe chill out for a bit. And then when it's done, it's done. So yeah, it is. It's your mileage may vary, horses for courses, all of that good stuff. Right, so what do we want to pick? Oh, we've got some more questions here. Is there a way to improve the search speed for related nodes, or just scaling out our servers? Okay, so the search speed. So this is a modeling question. This is very much a modeling question. We are going to do a session on modeling. I want to do a nice long session on modeling where you bring all your questions and we have a look at techniques. So generally, if you find that you're doing a query and you find your first node is really quick and you need to do some traversals and that bit's a bit slow, there are things you could do to model for performance. It could well be that your initial data model, which worked really, really well. It was fantastic for when you were working with the data and exploring it. But you know what? The use case grew. You found new opportunities. You found new questions to answer. And maybe that model now, the data model that you're working with, needs to be refactored. So maybe you need to do some changes. And that's fine. The really amazing thing that I love with graphs is you don't have to have a perfect data model to start answering questions. You don't have to worry about whether you've connected things in the optimal way or whether you've picked the right properties over, should it be a property, should it be a node, etc., etc. The point is you can put something together that's reasonably sensible based on your knowledge of the domain at that moment, and then you can go away and query. But it may not be the perfect model, but that's okay, because it's great to start answering questions. And then as you're more comfortable with what's going on, then you can adapt it. Great. But yes, we will do a modeling session. I love those. I love my data modeling, so we'll have fun with that. Okay, shall we have a look? So what do we want to have a look at? I'm thinking, shall we have a look at nulls? I think that's usually a pain point. I mean, that was my pain point when I was having a go. Yeah? Right, let's get rid of this. Let's get some data. What do we have in here? Unless there's some random Kaggle data set you'd like to suggest. Otherwise, I'm just going to invent some data. Oh, shall I invent some data? Let's do that. Give me 2 seconds. I'm going to cobble something together whilst we can admire the World Health Statistics of 2020 screen. Oh, I should have put a kitten photo up. This is where I went wrong. All right, let me just quickly put together a CSV. Ooh, let's do this in GitHub. Do we want to go back to the Star Wars theme? Although I will have to admit that I've probably forgotten the planets. Right, let's quickly do... No. How do I add something? Can I... Oh, create new file. That looks promising. Let's do this. Let's call it some data.csv. Right, so let's have some headings in here. We are going to have ID. Why not? Because everything has an ID. We're thinking from relational worlds. Let's have... I really wish I'd remembered the names that we had from Kahoot. Those were quite fun. So let's go with character. Let's get with the Star Wars ones. Character, planet. And let's have Luke Skywalker. Let's have Anakin Skywalker. I'm not doing any relationships in this. We can do this another time. I'm just putting together some dodgy data. Let's do 3. Let's do Princess Leia. And let's have Jar Jar Binks. Let's have a nice divisive character. Everybody loves Jar Jar Binks. Apparently. Okay, so we said Tatooine. Tatooine. I probably misspelled Tatooine. Please don't judge me. Let's go back in here. I had the planets here, didn't I? When we did our where are my characters? We should have it in here, shouldn't we? You know what? I'm just grabbing any planet name and don't judge me if I've got it wrong. Right, let's do this. And for life of me, I can't remember which planet Jar Jar Binks came from. So we're going to leave it like that. So here is my CSV, my Star Wars CSV. I've got some data. Notice here we have what Neo4j would class as a null value. We've not put a planet in for Jar Jar Binks. So let's save this. And I'm going to get me some data. So let's go get the raw. Okay, so here is my CSV. So I'm going to go over here. Let's do load CSV with headers from address. Oops. As row, and we're going to return our data. So return row. Okay, so we have got the data. So there we go. We have the character, name of the character, we've got planets, and like you see here, so it's saying null. So if I tried to load this data as is, so I'm going to create character node. So let's do this, bring this back. Merge. Character. Name. It's going to be row.character. And we're going to do the planet as well. Actually, we can probably just do create. So let's do this. Merge p planet. Name is going to be row.planet. And then we're going to do a create C. I think I may have to put a with in here, so it may complain. That's fine. Right, so this will complain at us. There we go. There we go. There is that awkward cannot merge node using null property value for name. There we go. It's because we've got that. We've got that. Remember, Jar Jar Binks, we didn't provide the planet name for him. So we have to manage our nulls. And the easiest way to do it is we can use coalesce. So let's do coalesce. So I'm going to put in here coalesce row planet, and then I'm going to put in unknown. So what's going on here, if I describe what's going on, is what coalesce will do is you give it a bunch of parameters or a bunch of values, and what it will do is it's going to keep going through, and the minute it hits something that is not null, it's going to go, yep, that's the value, I'm taking that, thank you very much. So what will happen here is if we sort of step through what's going on. So when we create our character of Luke Skywalker, it's going to go, yep, there we go, making that character Luke Skywalker. It's going to go take planet. So we're taking the thing for planet. And it's going to coalesce. Well, row.planet gives us Tatooine. So that's fine. We take Tatooine and we carry on. We go on to the next one. We go to Anakin. Same idea, Tatooine. We go to Princess Leia, Alderaan. Happy days. And then what happens is when we get here, we get this null value. It's going to go, well, this is a null. So I move on to the next value. And the next value we've provided is a string called unknown. It's going to use that value. Now, you can use anything here. Maybe there's another value you want to use in the spreadsheet. Maybe you want to put a conditional in. The world is your oyster. But this is a very simple way of how we're going to deal with those nulls. So if I now run this, we don't have any scary messages. And we've created some data. So let's have a look at what it looks like. Oh, we want the pretty graph. So there we go. We have created our data. So here we go. We have got everyone linked in. And we know that Anakin and Luke are both from Tatooine. And where we had that null value, we've done a unknown. So in this situation, I've created a node, but maybe we don't always want to create a node. So what we can do, there is a weird cipher trick. I think if we want to dive into that now, or do we want to have a more in-depth thing? So I am going to be writing this stuff up. I'm planning to do a series of blog posts on LOAD CSV and all of the fun things about dealing with null. So don't worry. I just wanted us to just sort of have a go and touch this and have a fun quiz and start to look at some of the stuff around LOAD CSV. I guess if there's any quick questions around this or any other things in the quiz, we can quickly cover it. Otherwise, I think this is a nice place to wrap up on the session. So if you've got any questions, pop them in the chat. And if in general, if there's any Neo4j cipher-based quiz topics you'd like to cover in the future, put them in the chat as well. Maybe we're going to make that happen. Have a bit of fun. Bit of Twitch competitive rivalry, which is always good fun. So maybe I'll even see if I can get the very exciting sounding Kahoot music in the background next time as well. That'd be fun. Okay, in that case, there's no questions. So I'm going to leave it there for now. We're going to revisit this. This is a very popular subject, along with modelling. I do like the modelling. And I hope you had fun with the quiz. We're going to do it all again next week. So I hope you have a fantastic day and catch you all later. Bye.